We've all seen those images of Jesus looking rather stern or angry, knocking over some tables and chasing folks out of the temple. Some portray him with a whip, chasing out the people, the sheep, etc. And that whole scene is the story of what we call the cleansing of the temple. But if you look at what actually happened, it really wasn't a cleansing or a cleaning. It was a revolution. It was a total purging of the old way to make way for something radically new. So today we're going to dive into whether there might have been two temple purges, why Jesus welcomed the blemished, and the uncomfortable question, if Jesus walked into our churches today, what would he flip over? There's a little bit of mystery in the Gospels because if you read Matthew and Mark, the temple purges or the cleansings happened at the very end of Jesus' life, just before he was crucified and right after the triumphal entry. But if you read the Gospel of John, it happens at the beginning of his ministry, right after the wedding feast. So most scholars say that it was just an event that was moved for theological reasons, that the event happened and it just got misplaced by perhaps John. But I'm part of the minority, actually, that believes that Jesus cleansed or purged the temple twice. So think about it. John uses a timeline that follows the Jewish feasts chronologically. So Jesus starts his ministry at the Passover by purging the temple, and then he ends his ministry with his death on the cross at a Passover after purging the temple. So it's like bookends. And I think what John is doing is he's marking the passage of time, but he's making the argument that the old religious empire is being cleared out and that the gates are being opened and something new is taking place. I think there's a detail that's found in Matthew's gospel, but not here in John's, that is important to the story, and it's one that we often miss and just pass over quickly. And it's in Matthew's account, right after he had purged the temple and ran out the thieves out of the den of thieves. He's flipped some tables, he pushed all the people out, all the animals out, and then something strange happens. Matthew says, the blind and the lame came into the temple, and he, meaning Jesus, healed them. So what you have to understand is in the temple, only the things that were perfect in the eyes of the Jewish religion, or those who were speaking for God, quote unquote, were allowed in the temple. The animals had to be perfect to go in to be sacrificed. And more often than not, there were those who were blemished, the blind, the lame, the crippled, the sick. They were kept outside of the temple gates because they were unclean, they were blemished, they were impure. But by healing them inside of the temple, Jesus was doing much more than the miracle of healing. He was rededicating that space. He drove out the perfect business and welcomed the broken people. He was saying this isn't a house of transaction anymore. It's a house of restoration. It's easy to look at those money changers and say, hey, they're the bad guys, and they are the thieves in the den of thieves. But if you ask them, they would tell you that they honestly believed they were doing God's good work. In the Jewish religion and the culture of the time, going to the Passover was a lifetime event. It's something that you had to have done at least once to be a good Jew. But many tried to do it as much as they could. And the people traveled for weeks to get to Jerusalem. And they couldn't really drag an animal or carry an animal and feed it for a 100-mile hike, could they? So the vendors were providing a service. They were providing a service to the people of Israel. They provided convenience. The temple only took the temple currency. And so people that lived far away from the temple, that didn't exchange money and trade with the temple regularly, they had to trade in the villages and their towns that they were living in, and each area had kind of their own type of trade and coin. And so the money changers would take that foreign coin and exchange it for temple coin so that the people could buy their sacrifices, pay for their sins. So everyone had the right currency to pay the temple tax and to trade and buy things while they were there at the temple during the Passover. A good business, right? Well, where it went wrong was the tax that they were taxing on the tax, for lack of a better word. So they thought that they were helping people worship, but their motivation had shifted from serving God and the people of God, the people of Israel, to profit. They would rather serve the system and make money than serving people. Do you see the difference? But this is where it gets uncomfortable. We look at those vendors, and the way that I pose the story, we look at them and we're quick to judge them. But look at our churches today. We spend millions on attracting visitors. We've got the coffee shops. We got the bookstores full of the pastor's new books. We've got his sermon notes available online with an app. We've got the fog machines, the stadium lights. We've got the system set up to bring people in. And we even have apps so that you can tithe without passing a plate. Did you know that over $150 billion are given to the American religious system each year? $150 billion are given to the church. So whose kingdom are we building? Jesus wasn't angry at high prices. He was angry at the system, and that the focus had become on the system of religion and not his Father. And so he, through his actions of purging the temple, he was ushering out the old and replacing it with something new, with something living. He was making the dead become alive. And if you think about that, this is the second instance where Jesus took something that was empty and dead and broken in the religious system and reutilized it for hope, restoration, and joy. So let me ask you this question. In our churches, in our ministries, and our own lives, whose kingdom are we really serving, and whose kingdom are we really building? Is it God's? Is it ours? Or are we just another cog in this religious system that keeps repeating itself over and over and over again? If Jesus came to your church, to your life, what tables would he flip over? Grace and peace to you. God bless you. Have a great week.